Welcome to the Allandale Neighbourhood Association all-candidate meeting and debate. My name is Bill Scott. For my sins, I am your moderator tonight. I'm going to first take a moment and say that we are exceptionally fortunate to have the help of Unity Christian High School. They give us this space free for us to meet in. They call themselves a community school, and that's one of the ways they show it, and we are very grateful for that. So my next question is, how many people here got an email about this meeting? How many did not? Well, for those people, there's a thing over there that you can put your email address on, and you will get them from now on, because that's very important. How many people know anything about the Allandale Neighbourhood Association? For those who might want to know more, there are brochures over there, so you can read a brochure while you're writing down your email address. Now, there are some ground rules, as always, for these debates, and they are designed primarily to avoid serious bloodshed. So the first thing is, each of the four candidates will get 6 minutes to make an opening statement in which they can tell you who they are and why you should consider voting for them. The Allandale Neighbourhood Association has provided 2 questions of some interest to us, and they have seen those questions, so we will invite each of them in turn to comment on those questions, and for that they'll get 2 minutes each. Then we'll open the floor to questions. And there's only one thing about that I'd like to point out. If you want to stand and pose a question, it has to be a question and not a sermon. It is the candidates' opinions we want, so please pose a question so that you can elucidate a response from them, but don't spend 10 minutes in a preamble or I'll cut you off. The candidate to address you tonight is Jim Harris.
Let's get right into it.
We have the honors to have me on Brian. I'd like to begin by thanking the Allandale Neighbourhood Association for organizing the event, and also the Christian School for hosting us. And some of you may know that 12 years ago, the school board decided to close this school, claiming it was not worth the cost of keeping it going. Thank you, Unity, for proving them wrong and preserving this most important part of Allandale's heritage, both natural and cultural. So before we begin, I have to make sure I thank my wife, Michelle, and my friends, Sam, for being here. Thank you. I also have to recognize my fellow candidates, Shelly, Brian, and Brad, for having the courage to put the name on a ballot and for being a fit to serve 4 days. And finally, most importantly, I'd like to thank each of you for coming out tonight. Thank you for your interest in both our ward and the city. So who am I? I'm very proud to claim that I was born and raised in Barrie. My wife, Michelle, chose to raise our family in Ward 8. My parents are Barrie and Wayne Harris. They have deep ties to this community, operating a small business on 5th Street for 40+ years. My mother grew up on Campbell Avenue. My father served 20 years as a firefighter. They were married down the road at Professional Presbyterian Church. It's from them that I learned the importance of giving back to the community that gives so much to you. Experiencing our city as a child, teen, young adult, and parent throughout its growth and evolution has given me a unique appreciation for the quality of life this community offers us all. I've received a great deal from this city, and for much of my adult life, I've enjoyed the opportunity to give back. And because of this, I feel very deeply, very home where I live. It's a part of who I am. It is this commitment, passion, and appreciation for our community that will drive me to work diligently for my fellow Ward 8 residents and collaborate with other councillors to create both a better Ward 8 and City of Barrie. In addition, educational preparation with a Master of Public Administration and a Bachelor of Arts. My approach to serving you. I've mentioned I firmly believe in the value of public service. My approach will be guided by 3 key principles. Number 1, honoring the past. I believe direct investment in our historical landmarks and sites are investments in our future. 2, improving the present. Simply put, live in the present. I will work to improve the services, infrastructure, and facilities that we rely on each day. Protecting our future. For Barrie to remain one of the best cities in Canada to live and do business, I will ensure investments and decisions consider both the long-term and short-term benefits and consequences. A bit about my record. I'm proud to share our extensive history as both a citizen and professional and giving back to this community. As a citizen, my dedication includes serving on local board of directors, advisory groups, and a lengthy history of volunteering. Most recent examples include my contributions to Barrie Police Services, which earned me the 2018 Chief of Police Award. I'm also a member of the Season Center for Grieving Children Board and Simple Community Services Client Rights and Advisory. As a professional, I've worked with many of the city's key partners on a variety of projects, ranging from expanding healthcare services, including telemedicine, designing and evaluating training programs, starting awareness campaigns, supporting our first responders, creating service partnerships, developing affordable housing, creating jobs, improving service, emergency services, and bringing events to Barrie. I invite you to visit my website to view a list of those that I've worked with. Now for the issues. Ward 8 has issues that are unique and important to our residents. I look forward to discussing these tonight. Recent examples include the proposed transit hub, Allandale Stadium, saving our heritage, and intensification. But other cases include, number one, traffic management and safety. I've heard this loud and clear as I've walked our neighborhoods. Number two, city facilities, services, and infrastructure, most notably, condition of our roads. Number three, fair taxation and value for our tax dollar. Putting needs ahead of wants, ensuring the cost of growth is not downloaded to our residents is a common concern. Preserving our history. As a relatively young city, we have struggled to preserve our heritage. I'm pleased to see the new heritage plan and look forward to seeing efforts to preserve both our cultural and natural heritage. Growing the local economy, number five. Creating jobs and diversifying our tax base is a key for our community. The announcement that Barrie has among the highest unemployment rates in Canada should be a wake-up call to all. Number six, affordable housing. To me, this includes housing for those, both those marginalized, those with lower incomes, new homeowners trying to get a foot into the market, and seniors on fixed incomes who are challenged by the increased cost of running a household. I believe housing for seniors should be highlighted in the Barrie age-friendly community plan. And finally, post-secondary education. I believe it is vital that we ensure Barrie has a plan in place for the next future call for a standalone university campus. Having a campus will provide good paying jobs, support the local economy, reduce student debt, and increase the post-secondary graduation rates for our citizens. All allowing our businesses and citizens to better compete in our new economy. As your councillor, I will work with you to ensure that Barrie remains one of the best places in Canada to raise a family, operate a business, launch and develop a career, experience recreation and culture, and enjoy the great outdoors. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I don't think I can follow that up, to tell you the truth. I think what you're going to hear tonight, I'm Brian Miller. I think what you're going to hear is a lot of repetitive issues that are facing us here in Ward 8. A little bit about myself. My wife and I moved to Barrie in 1988. I grew up in Waterloo, where I was raised, which was the small town that I knew, and then I moved to Toronto, and my wife, who's in the town, I'd like to thank Shelly for being here as well. She's been with me, I call it towing her along, as we go door to door. And it's been very important for us and for myself to meet with as many people as I can in the community and in Ward 8. As you will be aware, I'm not doing election lawn signs. I'm trying to be environmentally friendly. I'm trying to be fiscally responsible. And I'm also not taking any donations whatsoever from any other outside sources, as I don't want it to influence my decision-making while on council. I've been a resident in Barrie for 30 years, moving up here in 1988. And we've also resided in Ward 8 for 30 years, living on Ridgeway Ave and over on Briar Road, where we are currently. We've been married for 35 years, and we have 3 adult daughters and a grandson. I'm a retired police officer. I was a staff sergeant with Sept Police, and I feel that will give me the excellent background of probably one of the city's largest budgetary items. I think it's important that we have a strong representative on the Police Services Board, and I bring that type of representation experience to the board. A bit about my history as a staff sergeant. I have 31 years of exemplary service in policing, receiving the 20 and 30-year medal in policing. I'm also a recipient of the Queen's Jubilee Medal back in 2002. That was for volunteering. and also for my work as an association president. I was president of our association for 16 years. I was also the director of the Police Association of Ontario for 7 years. That allowed me considerable opportunity to interact with all levels of government, whether it be through bargaining, human rights issues, public safety issues, policing issues. So I found it very interesting, and a lot of people ask me at the door, why am I running? I look at it and I want to look from the inside out, not the outside in. There's a lot of decisions that are made at council that unfortunately the citizens don't hear about. And I think it's important that we communicate with you. I think there's a lack of communication coming out. We only have one newspaper left. We do have some online papers, which is wonderful. But in talking to a lot of the seniors in our resident in our ward and in the community, they feel out of touch with what's actually going on in our community. I think it's important to share that. I also, back when I was working, I had 10 years of volunteering on the Georgian College advisory committees for the applied degree in policing, as well as the Justice Public Safety Institute. I was a coach with Barrie Minor Soccer, trying to mix that in with being association president, as well as being a staff sergeant, as well as being a father. And I was coach for 13 years. And I truly appreciate all the volunteers. Kathy and the Allandale Neighbourhood Association are a perfect example with the heritage strategy. They've done a wonderful job. Volunteers can only take things so far, and I'll touch upon that later. I think it's important that we hire a heritage strategy planner to move that forward as well. I want to let you know that I have no political affiliation. I don't belong to the Conservatives, I don't belong to the Liberals. I haven't belonged to any of those parties. When I lobbied the government, the Liberals, the Conservatives, all parties flip-flop on their platforms. Hate to say it, but they do. And we basically look at whoever has the best platform and who is the best person to represent your interests. That's who we select. And I say we, my wife can vote how she sees fit, but we kind of talk that way anyways, and it's her decision whether she votes, but it's likewise for mine. In regards to the issues, I think Jim touched on it, I'm sure everybody else will too. Aging infrastructure is, of course, the biggie. Historic Allandale A neighborhood and B neighborhood, both have been identified as they require upgrading and everything, sewers, as the development, or as the engineering department said, yeah, they've identified them. Major work is required there. And my goal on council would be to make sure that they stay on schedule. In regards to the engineering department itself, we visited there. I know Jim was there, I'm not sure if the other candidates were there today. But I spoke to the engineering department. They have some fairly large maps there, and addressing, I think there's yellow, orange, green, different varying colors. And they've identified Old Allandale, just for those that live up, I call it on top of the hill, as opposed to down here where it's already been identified. Engineering will be reviewing the sewers and the roadways, because I know there's a lot of roads in Old Allandale that need a lot of tender loving care. And they're going to assess whether it's one sewer or two sewers or it needs a different roadway that needs an entire repair. So they aren't forgetting about you, but it's out there, and I think it's important that we watch that. Next, we'll be managing growth in the south end. We have to ensure that we're managing growth. The city debt's $285 million, and interest repayments are $29 million. I have a serious concern. In talking with the finance department today, they indicated, they don't have 15 seconds, they indicated that we cannot afford any more unnecessary debt over the next 3 to 5 years. And when I come on council, I will ensure that we do not incur extra debt that is not necessary. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting us here. I've had quite the pleasure knocking on doors and getting to know the community. My name is Shelly Skinner, and thank you to the Allandale Neighbourhood Association, to Unity Christian School for inviting us, and to all my candidates up for today. Good luck. I know we have a lot of incredible things to say, and I'm really impressed with the people who are running, not only in our ward, but throughout the community, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen with a new city council. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I moved to Ward 8 back in 2012 from the GTA area. I quickly fell in love with the connectivity and lifestyle that Barrie had to offer. To me, it was the perfect city to raise my children, my 2 kids, and currently our dog, Jersey. I've immersed myself in the community and the culture, truly living Barrie's slogan, well connected. I've taken on responsibility to be a voice for those, a voice for and supported those who are marginalized in our community. Community involvement has been a key focus for me, both on a professional level and as a dedicated volunteer. Through event planning and fundraising, I've helped to raise over $100,000 for community organizations such as Women and Children's Shelter Barrie, Redwood Park Communities, and Barrie Pride. As a 2018 recipient of Leading Women, Leading Girls, Building Communities Award, I dedicated myself to improving my community and the lives of women, children, and marginalized groups. This year, the Ontario Trillium Foundation chose me to speak on diversity and inclusion. I was a keynote, rally speaker, and MC for multiple International Women's Day events, both in Toronto, here in Barrie, and at Georgian College. I was the MC for various city events, including the Barrie Arts Awards and the Black History Month Women of Color panel that was held at the Fat Point Theatre. And I was a panelist for the EGAL Canada Human Rights Trust Conference in Toronto. I love my city, but I know that it needs work to become one of the great cities. And I'm talking to you a little bit about my experience with my professional experience and my lived experiences. When I lived in 1988, I moved to Brampton, Ontario. And at that time, the community had 230,000 people. If you know anything about Brampton now, close to 600,000 people that live in that city. I lived across from a barn. There was a rooster that woke me up in the morning. And this was on the border of Mississauga and Brampton. As a young kid who went to elementary school and high school, I saw my community grow and grow and grow. And there were two things that I noticed. One, Mississauga was doing it right, and 2, Brampton was doing it wrong. And what you see now is that Brampton is what we call a veteran community, and what Jeff Lehman has been trying really hard to try to fix in our community. Lots of housing, lots of problems with traffic, and not enough jobs, or high-paying, low-paying jobs for the community. Everybody there commutes to go to work. It has been proposed that in the next 5 to 10 years, we will gain another 100,000 people in our community. That will be up to the same level of what it was in Brampton when I lived in '88. What are we going to do? How are we going to sustain this community? How are we going to make sure that we are a community that we live, we work, and we play in? As I got older, I watched Hazel McCowan, who is, I don't know if you ever know, she was the mayor of Mississauga, and definitely a role model and an idol of mine. A feminist and just a badass bitch. Sorry, that's me. That's not going to change. She made sure that the community was thriving. She made sure that we had mixed residential communities, that arts and culture was something that was a top priority, that diversity and inclusion of our community was at the top of our priority, making sure that it was the kind of community that corporations and businesses, that industries wanted to move to. I watched her come into my mom's work when she worked in Scotiabank in Toronto and speak to the entire company and have them close their doors and move from downtown Toronto to Mississauga. Majority of those people who worked in that building had lived in Toronto. They sold their homes and they moved to Mississauga. I want to see Barrie become one of those communities. And she did it by making sure that she listened to what the corporations and businesses were doing and what they thought was really important. And one of the biggest things that they were dealing with at that time was being a diverse and inclusive organization, a diverse and inclusive company. And it's something that Barrie struggles with. And it's something that I recognize as somebody of a marginalized group. I'm, a Black woman, I'm a single mom, and when I moved here, I didn't really see a lot of faces that looked like my own. And what I've done is I've tried to kind of work and speak in my community for people, but also make it a lot more inclusive and diverse and fun, and introduce the community to different cultures, and I want to continue to do that when I'm on council. Yeah, so these are some of my 5 points that I'll get into so you can kind of understand. And believe me, I've received the emails and I've been following and I've been doing my homework, and I will get to the questions that you guys have given to us about, the heritage and safety and what's happening with Transit Hub. But these are what I've noticed from my own eyes, and I think that you might be surprised to see that there's some different things that we may not have talked about, or some of the other candidates haven't talked about. So diversity and inclusion. Let's elect a council that represents a growing diversity of our community, that allows people to experience Barrie in new, fresh, and encouraging ways. 15 seconds. Affordable housing. Let's build a community where everyone can afford to live together without feeling separated as a group or singled out. Growth in arts and culture. Let's encourage more conversations, collaborations, and support to keep Barrie's diverse arts and cultures communities strong and thriving. Accessibility. Let's help everyone to be able to enjoy our beautiful city to the fullest, regardless of their means and abilities. And lastly, community togetherness. Let's embrace inclusive community values that connect us to people, bring us closer together, and encourage us to support each other.
Well, thank you to the Allandale Neighbourhood Association for putting this on, and thank you for coming. I started canvassing about 2 months ago, and it's been very enlightening and very hard work. I estimate that I've knocked on over 5,000 doors, and I especially enjoyed your neighbourhood. I can tell you that I enjoyed it the most. Reading took away a little bit of the monotony of it, saying the same things over and reading the plaques on your homes. And my grandfather, Reed Thompson, I was reading his service record. He worked for the CNR, and he worked for the Allandale Division. He started in April 1929, and so I was reading the plaques on your homes. I thought that he probably knew all of these people. Certainly he wouldn't have known some of them, and I've got such fond memories as a boy riding the trains with him. A little bit about me is my wife and I and our 2 children arrived in Barrie in 1989 on a company transfer, and a few years after moving here, the company that moved me here went out of business. And after a few sleepless nights and a little bit of anxiety, we kind of sort of landed on our feet when we started a business here in Ward 8 that proved to be very fruitful, and Ward 8 has been a wonderful place for our family. Barrie has been a wonderful place for us to raise our children and to work in. As I said, we have 2 boys. I'm married to my beautiful wife. I'm happily married for 35 years. Joanne, she's here supporting me here. And we're fortunate that our boys were able to be educated, to receive all of their education here in Barrie. They went to grade school here, they went to high school here, and we were fortunate that they did their post-secondary school here in Barrie. And one is a certified chartered accountant. He just works up at the top of the hill here at Bromley Homes LLP. And our youngest son, Ben, he bought a home in Barrie a couple of years ago, and he flies for Air Canada. So Barrie has been wonderful for us. While canvassing and talking to you, to me anyways, you sent me a very clear message. And there was really 5 points that the residents of Ward 8 brought up to me that you would like me to influence in a positive way for you. First and foremost, I have heard over and over and over again your concern about your property taxes, both in how much you pay and how much that our city spends. And I've got a history of business. I'm retired now from that business. I'm used to dealing with multi-million-dollar budgets. I know that I can be a positive influence on our city budget for the residents of Ward 8 and for Barrie. Secondly, I hear from you that you want better and safer maintained roads. There's really no one solution for this. And certainly I'll need your input on this as well, because each neighborhood and each street has a different concern. Some of the tools we have available to us obviously is enforcement. I think we can do better on that. Ward 10 now is experimenting with permanent speed bumps. I know we've seen the speed bumps in Barrie, but what a lot of us don't know is a $100,000 expenditure out of our tax dollars that the city budget does every year in putting these speed bumps down and taking them up. So I certainly like the idea of the permanent ones, and hopefully we'll see how that experiment goes in Ward 10. We also have LED speed warning signs, more stop signs, and photo radar at our disposal to help. These are the tools we have that can help calm and make our streets safer. I've heard very clearly from you that you want a safer community. As a parent and grandparent, we have 4 grandchildren now. Our newest is about 9 days old. I'm really concerned with what's going on in downtown Barrie. I play tennis on a regular basis at Queen's Park, and there's people living there now. In our library, we've had to hire security there to protect our staff and patrons that go to our downtown library. I think that we can do better, and I hope to have an influence on the City Council and the City of Barrie to help with that. I've heard very clearly from you that you want protection for your parks, our parks and heritage sites. A few years ago, when our oldest son got married, we held a wedding reception at the South Shore Community Center. Our out-of-town guests were absolutely amazed at the beauty of our city and of the open space there. I think we need to do everything we can to protect that for ourselves and for future generations. I know that there was some consideration in the past of putting a ballpark there. I'm not in favor of that. We need to keep our green spaces open, and I don't think that was a good decision, and I'm grateful for the current City Council that was wise enough to vote that down. So way to go, City of Barrie. And fourth and finally, I hear from you that you want more access and more involvement with your representative at City Hall. Unfortunately, some of your calls went unanswered, some of your emails went unanswered, and that'll be an easy commitment for you to keep. I'll not have all the answers, but I know that as we work together, that we can find the solutions to these problems and make sure that Barrie continues to be a wonderful place to live. Thank you.
Primary statements, which we ask them to be prepared to address. So the first question is, safety in Allandale is a concern with many schools, churches, senior centers, and young families. Many residents are worried about speeding, large trucks on Burton Avenue, and criminal activity in the area. So the question is, how do you propose to advocate for Allandale safety as our councillor? And the first responder is Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. A few weeks ago, on Little Avenue, I was out canvassing, I saw the skid marks. Many of you may have read in the paper that insane driver, he was driving 160 kilometers an hour, and he went airborne over the railroad crossing there and landed in the school playground. And I don't think there's anything that we're going to be able to do to, that guy was just stupid. All right, and he should lose the privilege of driving in our community. But what we can do, I think a simple solution for Burton here, I know the city's looking at photo radar, and that to me would be a good solution, just to remind people. I think we all need a reminder. I think some of us are part of it. I know I get distracted sometimes and don't pay attention, and those little reminders can really help you out. I think photo radar might be a solution to Burton. I think a solution for crime is that as I was out canvassing, I found out that the prison bus or the prison van still, the penitentiary super jail, still drops off their inmates every day in downtown Barrie. I called the prison about 3 weeks ago and asked them, what the process was, and their comment to me was, some days we only drop off 3. I think we can do better. And speaking to a parole officer in your community, she was telling me that the drug dealers line up for these individuals, and the most vulnerable time for them was the first 24 hours. I think we can do better. And certainly, I don't think any of us want that problem moved to the Allandale train station. So that's something that I'm not in favor of, is moving the transit hub to our ward. Thank you.
Welcome to the Allandale Neighbourhood Association all-candidate meeting and debate. My name is Bill Scott. For my sins, I am your moderator tonight. I'm going to first take a moment and say that we are exceptionally fortunate to have the help of Unity Christian High School. They give us this space free for us to meet in. They call themselves a community school, and that's one of the ways they show it, and we are very grateful for that. So my next question is, how many people here got an email about this meeting? How many did not? Well, for those people, there's a thing over there that you can put your email address on, and you will get them from now on, because that's very important. How many people know anything about the Allandale Neighbourhood Association? For those who might want to know more, there are brochures over there, so you can read a brochure while you're writing down your email address. Now, there are some ground rules, as always, for these debates, and they are designed primarily to avoid serious bloodshed. So the first thing is, each of the 4 candidates will get 6 minutes to make an opening statement in which they can tell you who they are and why you should consider voting for them. The Allandale Neighbourhood Association has provided 2 questions of some interest to us, and they have seen those questions, so we will invite each of them in turn to comment on those questions, and for that they'll get 2 minutes each. Then we'll open the floor to questions. And there's only one thing about that I'd like to point out. If you want to stand and pose a question, it has to be a question and not a sermon. It is the candidates' opinions we want, so please pose a question so that you can elucidate a response from them, but don't spend 10 minutes in a preamble or I'll cut you off. Good. I think that's about all I have here. I'd like to ask Joyce Chung, who's the chair of the Allandale Neighbourhood Association, to come and say a few words as well.
I'm just going to stand here. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Welcome.
The candidate to address you tonight is Jim Harris.
Okay, let's get right into it.
We have the honors to have me on. I'd like to begin by thanking the Allandale Neighbourhood Association for organizing the event, and also the Christian School for hosting us. And some of you may know that 12 years ago, the school board decided to close this school, claiming it was not worth the cost of keeping it going. Thank you, Unity, for proving them wrong and preserving this most important part of Allandale's heritage, both natural and cultural. So before we get, I have to make sure I thank my wife, Michelle, and my friends, Sam, for being here. Thank you. I also have to recognize my fellow candidates, Shelly, Brian, and Brad, for having the courage to put the name on a ballot and being a good service board agent. And finally, most important, I'd like to thank each of you for coming out tonight. Thank you for your interest in both our ward and the city. So who am I? I'm very proud to claim that I was born and raised in Barrie. My wife, Michelle, chose to raise our family in Ward 8. My parents are Bart and Wayne Harris. They have deep ties to this community, operated a small business on 5th Street for 40+ years. My mother grew up on Handel Avenue. My father served 20 years as a firefighter. They were married down the road at Presbyterian Church. It's from them that I learned the importance of giving back to the community that gives so much to you. Experiencing our city as a child, teen, young adult, and a parent throughout its growth and evolution has given me a unique appreciation for the quality of life this community offers us all. I've received a great deal from the city, and for much of my adult life, I've enjoyed the opportunity to give back. And because of this, I feel very deeply, very home where I live. It's a part of who I am. It is this commitment, passion, and appreciation for our community that will drive me to work diligently with fellow Ward 8 residents and collaborate with other councillors to create both a better Ward 8 and City of Barrie. In addition, educational preparation with a Master's of Public Administration and a Bachelor of Arts. My approach to serving you. I've mentioned I firmly believe in the value of public service. My approach will be guided by 3 key principles. Number 1, honoring the past. I believe direct investment in our historical landmarks and sites are investments in our future. 2, improving the present. Simply put, live in the present. I will work to improve the services, infrastructure, and facilities that we rely on each day. Protecting our future. For Barrie to remain one of the best cities in Canada to live and do business, I will ensure investments and decisions consider both the long-term and short-term benefits and consequences. A bit about my record. I'm proud proud to share I have extensive history as both a citizen and professional and giving back to this community. As a citizen, my dedication includes serving on local board of directors, advisory groups, and a lengthy history of volunteering. Most recent examples include my contributions to Barrie Police Services, which earned me the 2018 Chief of Police Award. I'm also a current member of the Senior Center for Grieving Children Board and Simple Community Services Client Rights and Advisory. As a professional, I work with many of the city's key partners on a variety of projects, ranging from expanding healthcare services, including telemedicine, designing and evaluating training programs, starting awareness campaigns, supporting our first responders, creating service partnerships, developing affordable housing, creating jobs, improving service, emergency services, and bringing events to work. I invite you to visit my website to view a list of those that I've worked with. Now for the issues. Ward 8 has issues that are unique and important to our residents. I look forward to discussing these tonight. Recent examples include the proposed transit hub, Waterfront Stadium, saving our heritage, and intensification. But other cases include, number one, traffic management and safety. I've heard this loud and clear as I've walked our neighborhoods. Number two, city facilities, services, and infrastructure, most notably, condition of our roads. Number three, fair taxation and value for our tax dollar. Putting needs ahead of wants and ensuring the cost of growth is not downloaded to current residents is a common concern. Preserving our history. In a relatively young city, we have struggled to preserve our heritage. I am pleased to see the new heritage plan and look forward to seeing efforts to preserve both our cultural and natural heritage. Growing the local economy, number five. Creating jobs and diversifying our tax base is a key for our community. The announcement that Barrie has among the highest unemployment rates in Canada should be a wake-up call to all. Number six, affordable housing. For me, this includes housing for both those marginalized, those with lower incomes, new homeowners trying to get a foot into the market, and seniors on fixed incomes who are challenged by the increased cost of running a household. I believe housing for seniors should be highlighted in the Barrie age-bound community plan. And finally, post-secondary education. I believe it is vital that we ensure Barrie has a plan in place for the next vision call for a standalone university campus. Having a campus will provide good paying jobs, support the local economy, reduce student debt, and increase the post-secondary graduation rates for our citizens. All allowing our businesses and citizens to better compete in our new economy. As your council, I will work with you to ensure that Barrie remains one of the best places in Canada to raise a family, operate a business, launch and develop a career, experience recreation and culture, and enjoy the great outdoors. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I don't think I can follow that up, to tell you the truth. I think what you're going to hear tonight, I'm Brian Miller. I think what you're going to hear is a lot of repetitive issues that are facing us here in Ward 8. A little bit about myself. My wife and I moved to Barrie in 1988. I grew up in Waterloo, where I was raised, which was the small town that I knew, and then I moved to Toronto, and my wife, who's in the town, I'd like to thank Shelly for being here as well. She's been with me, I call it towing her along, as we go door to door. And it's been very important for us and for myself to meet with as many people as I can in the community and in Ward 8. As you will be aware, I'm not doing election lawn signs. I'm trying to be environmentally friendly. I'm trying to be fiscally responsible. And I'm also not taking any donations whatsoever from any other outside sources, as I don't want it to influence my decision-making while on council. I've been a resident in Barrie for 30 years, moving up here in 1988. And we've also resided in Ward 8 for 30 years, living on Ridgeway Ave and over on Briar Road, where we are currently. We've been married for 35 years, and we have 3 adult daughters and a grandson. We tried, I'm a retired police officer, I was a staff sergeant with Sept Police, and I feel that will give me the excellent background, probably one of the city's largest budgetary items. I think it's important that we have a strong representative on the Police Services Board, and I bring that type of representation experience to the board. A bit about my history as a staff sergeant. I have 31 years of exemplary service in policing, receiving the 20 and 30-year medal in policing. I'm also a recipient of the Queen's Jubilee Medal back in 2002. That was for volunteering. and also for my work as an association president. I was president of our association for 16 years. I was also the director of the Police Association of Ontario for 7 years. That allowed me considerable opportunity to interact with all levels of government, whether it be through bargaining, human rights issues, public safety issues, policing issues. So I found it very interesting, and a lot of people ask me at the door, why am I running? I look at it and I want to look from the inside out, not the outside in. There's a lot of decisions that are made at council that unfortunately the citizens don't hear about. And I think it's important that we communicate with you. I think there's a lack of communication coming out. We only have one newspaper left. We do have some online papers, which is wonderful. But in talking to a lot of the seniors in our resident in our ward and the community, they feel out of touch with what's actually going on in our community. I think it's important to share that. I also, back when I was working, I had 10 years of volunteering on the Georgian College advisory committees for the applied degree in policing, as well as the Justice Public Safety Institute. I was a coach with Barrie Minor Soccer, trying to mix that in with being association president, as well being a staff sergeant, as well as being a father. And I was coach for 13 years. And I truly appreciate all the volunteers. Kathy and the Allandale Neighbourhood Association are a perfect example with the heritage strategy. They've done a wonderful job. Volunteers can only take things so far, and I'll touch upon that later. I think it's important that we hire a heritage strategy planner to move that forward as well. I want to let you know that I have no political affiliation. I don't belong to the Conservatives, I don't belong to the Liberals. I haven't belonged to any of those parties. When I lobbied the government, the Liberals and Conservatives, all parties flip-flop on their platforms. I hate to say it, but they do. And we basically look at whoever has the best platform and who is the best person to represent your interests. That's who we select. And I say we, my wife can vote how she sees fit, but we kind of talk that way anyways, and it's her decision whether she votes, but it's likewise for mine. In regards to the issues, I think Jim touched on it, I'm sure everybody else will too. Aging infrastructure is, of course, the biggie. Historic Allandale A neighborhood and B neighborhood, both have been identified as they require upgrading and everything, sewers, as the development, or as the engineering department said, yeah, they've identified them. Major work is required there. And my goal on council will be to make sure that they stay on schedule. In regards to the engineering department itself, we visited there. I know Jim was there, I'm not sure if the other candidates were there today. But I spoke to the engineering department. They have some fairly large maps there, and addressing, I think there's yellow, orange, green, different varying colors. And they've identified Old Allandale, just for those that live up, I call it on top of the hill, as opposed to down here where it's already been identified. Engineering will be reviewing the sewers and the roadways, because I know there's a lot of roads in Old Allandale that need a lot of tender loving care. And they're going to assess whether it's one sewer or two sewers, or it needs a different roadway that it needs an entire repair. So they aren't forgetting about you, but it's out there, and I think it's important that we watch that. Next, we'll be managing growth in the south end. We have to ensure that we're managing growth. The city debt's $285 million, and interest repayments are $29 million. I have a serious concern. In talking with the finance department today, they indicated, they don't have 15 seconds, they indicated that we cannot afford any more unnecessary debt over the next 3 to 5 years. And when I come on council, I will ensure that we do not incur extra debt that is not necessary. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting us here. I've had quite the pleasure knocking on doors and getting to know the community. My name is Shelly Skinner, and thank you to the Allandale Neighbourhood Association, to Unity Christian School for inviting us, and to all my candidates up here today. Good luck. I know we have a lot of incredible things to say, and I'm really impressed with the people who are running, not only in our ward, but throughout the community, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen with a new city council. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I moved to Ward 8 back in 2012 from the GTA area. I quickly fell in love with the connectivity and lifestyle that Barrie had to offer. To me, it was a perfect city to raise my children, my 2 kids, and currently our dog, Jersey. I've immersed myself in the community and the culture, truly living Barrie's slogan, well connected. I've taken on responsibility to be a voice for those, a voice for and supported those who are marginalized in our community. Community involvement has been a key focus for me, both on a professional level and as a dedicated volunteer. Through event planning and fundraising, I've helped raise over $100,000 for community organizations such as Women and Children's Shelter, Barrie, Redwood Park Communities, and Bigger Pride. As a 2018 recipient of Leading Women, Leading Girls, Building Communities Award, I've dedicated myself to improving my community and the lives of women, children, and marginalized groups. This year, the Ontario Trillium Foundation chose me to speak on diversity and inclusion. I was a keynote, rally speaker, and MC for multiple International Women's Day events, both in Toronto, here in Barrie, and at Georgian College. I was the MC for various city events, including the Barrie Arts Awards and the Black History Month Women of Color panel that was held at the Bath Points Theatre. And I was a panelist for the EGAL Canada Human Rights Trust Conference in Toronto. I love my city, but I know that it needs work to become one of the great cities. And I can talk to you a little bit about my experience with my professional experience and my lived experiences. When I lived in 1988, I moved to Brampton, Ontario, and at that time the community had 230,000 people. If you know anything about Brampton now, there are close to 600,000 people that live in that city. I lived across from a barn. There was a rooster that woke me up in the morning. And this was on the border of Mississauga and Brampton. As a young kid who went to elementary school and high school, I saw my community grow and grow and grow. And there were two things that I noticed. One, Mississauga was doing it right, and 2, Brampton was doing it wrong. And what you see now is that Brampton is what we call a veteran community, and what Jeff Lehman has been trying really hard to try to fix in our community. Lots of housing, lots of problems with traffic, and not enough jobs, or high-paying, well-paying jobs for the community. Everybody there commutes to go to work. It has been proposed that in the next 5 to 10 years, we will gain another 100,000 people in our community. That will be up to the same level of what it was in Brampton when I lived in 88. What are we going to do? How are we going to sustain this community? How are we going to make sure that we are a community that we live, we work, and we play in? As I got older, I watched Hazel McCowan, who is, I don't know if you ever know, she was the mayor of Mississauga, and definitely a role model and an idol of mine. A feminist and just a badass bitch. Sorry, that's me. It's not going to change. She made sure that the community was thriving. She made sure that we had mixed residential communities, that arts and culture was something that was a top of priority, that diversity and inclusion of our community was at the top of our priority, making sure that it was the kind of community that corporations and businesses, that industries wanted to move to. I watched her come into my mom's work when she worked in Scotiabank in Toronto and speak to the entire company and have them close their doors and move from downtown Toronto to Mississauga. Majority of those people who worked in that building had lived in Toronto. They sold their homes and they moved to Mississauga. I want to see Barrie become one of those communities. And she did it by making sure that she listened to what the corporations and businesses were doing and what they thought was really important. And one of the biggest things that they were dealing with at that time was being a diverse and inclusive organization, a diverse and inclusive company. And it's something that Barrie struggles with. And it's something that I recognize as somebody of a marginalized group. I'm, a Black woman, I'm a single mom, and when I moved here, I didn't really see a lot of faces that looked like my own. And what I've done is I've tried to kind of work and speak in my community for people, but also make it a lot more inclusive and diverse and fun, and introduce the community to different cultures, and I want to continue to do that when I'm on council. Now, so these are some of my 5 points that I'll get into so you can kind of understand. And believe me, I've received the emails and I've been following and I've been doing my homework, and I will get to the questions that you guys have given to us about, the heritage and safety and what's happening in the transit hub. But these are what I've noticed from my own eyes, and I think that you might be surprised to see that there's some different things that we may not have talked about, or some of the other candidates haven't talked about. So diversity and inclusion. Let's elect a council that represents a growing diversity of our community, that allows people to experience Barrie in new, fresh, and encouraging ways. 15 seconds. Affordable housing. Let's build a community where everyone can afford to live together without feeling separated as a group or singled out. Growth in arts and culture. Let's encourage more conversations, collaborations, and support to keep Barrie's diverse arts and cultures communities strong and thriving. Accessibility. Let's help everyone to be able to enjoy our beautiful city to the fullest, regardless of their means and abilities. And lastly, community togetherness. Let's embrace inclusive community values that connect us to people, bring us closer together, and encourage us to support each other.
Well, thank you to the Allandale Neighbourhood Association for putting this on, and thank you for coming. I started canvassing about 2 months ago, and it's been very enlightening and very hard work. I estimate that I've knocked on over 5,000 doors, and I especially enjoyed your neighborhood. I can tell you that I enjoyed it the most. Reading took away a little bit of the monotony of it, saying the same things over and reading the plaques on your homes. And my grandfather, Reed Thompson, I was reading his service record. He worked for the CNR, and he worked for the Allandale Division. He started in April 1929, and so I was reading the plaques on your homes. I thought that he probably knew all of these people. Certainly he wouldn't have known some of them, and I've got such fond memories as a boy riding the trains with him. A little bit about me is my wife and I and our 2 children arrived in Barrie in 1989 on a company transfer. And a few years after moving here, the company that moved me here went out of business. And after a few sleepless nights and a little bit of anxiety, we kind of sort of landed on our feet when we started a business here in Ward 8 that proved to be very fruitful. And Ward 8 has been a wonderful place for our family. Barrie has been a wonderful place for us to raise our children and to work in. As I said, we have 2 boys. I'm married to my beautiful wife. I'm happily married for 35 years. Joanne, she's here supporting me here. And we're fortunate that our boys were able to be educated, received all of their education here in Barrie. They went to grade school here, they went to high school here, and we were fortunate that they did their post-secondary school here in Barrie. And one is a certified chartered accountant. He just works up at the top of the hill here at Bromley Homes LLP. And our youngest son, Ben, he bought a home in Barrie a couple of years ago, and he flies for Air Canada. So Barrie has been wonderful for us. While canvassing and talking to you, to me anyways, you have sent me a very clear message. And there was really 5 points that the residents of Ward 8 brought up to me that you would like me to influence in a positive way for you. First and foremost, I've heard over and over and over again your concern about your property taxes, both in how much you pay and how much that our city spends. And I've got a history of business. I'm retired now from that business. I'm used to dealing with multi-million-dollar budgets. I know that I can be a positive influence on our city budget for the residents of Ward 8 and for Barrie. Secondly, I hear from you that you want better and safer maintained roads. There's really no one solution for this. And certainly I'll need your input on this as well, because each neighborhood and each street has a different concern. Some of the tools we have available to us obviously is enforcement. I think we can do better on that. Ward 10 now is experimenting with permanent speed bumps. I know we've seen the speed bumps in Barrie, but what a lot of us don't know is a $100,000 expenditure out of our tax dollars that the city budget does every year in putting these speed bumps down and taking them up. So I certainly like the idea of the permanent ones, and hopefully we'll see how that experiment goes in Ward 10. We also have LED speed warning signs, more stop signs, and photo radar at our disposal to help. These are the tools we have that can help calm and make our streets safer. I've heard very clearly from you that you want a safer community. As a parent and grandparent, we have 4 grandchildren now. Our newest is about 9 days old. I'm really concerned with what's going on in downtown Barrie. I play tennis on a regular basis at Queen's Park, and there's people living there now. In our library, we've had to hire security there to protect our staff and patrons that go to our downtown library. I think that we can do better, and I hope to have an influence on the City Council and the City of Barrie to help with that. I've heard very clearly from you that you want protection for your parks, our parks and heritage sites. A few years ago, when our oldest son got married, we held a wedding reception at the South Shore Community Center. Our out-of-town guests were absolutely amazed at the beauty of our city and of the open space there. I think we need to do everything we can to protect that for ourselves and for future generations. I know that there was some consideration in the past of putting a ballpark there. I'm not in favor of that. We need to keep our green spaces open, and I don't think that was a good decision, and I'm grateful for the current City Council that was wise enough to vote that down. So way to go, City of Barrie. And fourth and finally, I hear from you that you want more access and more involvement with your representative at City Hall. Unfortunately, some of your calls went unanswered, some of your emails went unanswered, and that'll be an easy commitment for you to keep. I'll not have all the answers, but I know that as we work together, that we can find the solutions to these problems and make sure that Barrie continues to be a wonderful place to live. Thank you.
Primary statements, which we ask them to be prepared to address. So the first question is, safety in Allandale is a concern with many schools, churches, senior centers, and young families. Many residents are worried about speeding, large trucks on Burton Avenue, and criminal activity in the area. So the question is, how do you propose to advocate for Allandale safety as our councillor? And the first responder is Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. A few weeks ago, on Little Avenue on canvassing, I saw the skid marks. Many of you may have read in the paper that insane driver, he was driving 160 kilometers an hour, and he went airborne over the railroad crossing there and landed in the school playground. And I don't think there's anything that we're going to be able to do to, that guy was just stupid. All right, and he should lose the privilege of driving in our community. But what we can do, I think a simple solution for Burton here, I know the city's looking at photo radar, and that to me would be a good solution, just to remind people. I think we all need a reminder. I think some of us are part of it. I know I get distracted sometimes and don't pay attention, and those little reminders can really help you out. And I think photo radar might be a solution to Burton. I think a solution for crime is that as I was out canvassing, I found out that the prison bus or the prison van still, the Penitentiary Super Jail, still drops off their inmates every day in downtown Barrie. I called the prison about 3 weeks ago and asked them, what the process was, and their comment to me was, some days we only drop off 3. I think we can do better. And speaking to a parole officer in your community, she was telling me that the drug dealers line up for these individuals, and the most vulnerable time for them was the first 24 hours. I think we can do better. And certainly, I don't think any of us want that problem moved to the Allandale train station. So that's something that I'm not in favor of, is moving the transit hub to our ward. Thank you.
All right, so safety. Well, as a mother of 2 and a single mother in this community and who lives just down the street, my kids go to Allandale Heights. Obviously, safety is something that will always be a concern for me. So one of the things that I think that are important to recognize is one of my points, which was community togetherness, and that Thompson just talked about how, you know, the car, the Tesla that was on Little. Well, you can see already that there was cameras and we were able to catch that. And Jim is the gentleman who owns that house. And, you know, that's something that we can all do. I think that the most important thing is, as a community, is to, you know, be out there, and if we see people speeding, if we see, you know, activity that is something that we're concerned about, we need to be reporting it. You know, that's what our police is for, and whether it's reporting it to a police or reporting it to your city council, so that we can be, you know, people that report it for you, and that's our job, to protect our community as well. So I think it's, we have to get together as a community and really start supporting the idea of sharing this information, so that we can have people out there protecting our streets the way they need to. And they're not going to be able to do it if they don't know what's happening. So we need to know exactly the streets that it is happening on, and we need to be consistent with that reporting. One of the things that I'm hoping as we continue with developments in the community is really thinking about Allandale as a separate annex, and something that requires a little bit more, less driving, more walking, more biking, more cycling in the community, and that will really slow things down. You know, so if we really think about the development and how we develop within the community, I think we'll see that our citizens will start to slow down, because they'll want to see our beautiful homes and our shops and what's available for us.
Speeding. I'm going to use the phrase community mobilization. It's a very popular phrase in policing. I'm going to advocate for the formation of a council-endorsed traffic safety committee that's comprised of appointed residents from each ward. So this is citywide, this is just not specific here. Along with council members, city staff, and with Barrie Police. I've spoken to Barrie Police Staff Sergeant. He's now on board with this, and so is the police department. It will address issues such as speeding, speed limits, traffic complaints, heavy trucks in neighborhoods, traffic calming devices, parking, etc. Everything that has to do with safety itself. Each ward then would have its own traffic safety subcommittee, and they could discuss all the ward-specific concerns, and the appointed member would bring forward those safety concerns. The problem is right now your council member decides where your traffic safety bumps go. I have a concern about that, because if a neighbor complains all the time, they may not be effective. I also support a proactive enforcement strategy that's educational as well. It doesn't always have to be tickets. Implementing no heavy truck regulation within our neighborhood, stipulating the hours, i.e. between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. I do know Burden Ab's a big issue, and I don't see why we can't do that here. They have it in other communities. In regards to criminal activity, I'm going to advocate for neighborhood community meetings in partnership with Barrie Police, bringing back a more effective neighborhood watch program. Signages and everything, it's not always a deterrent, but it does work. I'm going to advocate for additional police presence in our neighborhoods. Darkness attracts criminal activity, that's bottom line. I do know over on Granville Street, the lighting there is very poor. Branches are covering the street lights, and I think it's important that we trim up those branches, so I think that's another issue in itself. I'm done, thanks.
All of us have heard this as we walk the neighborhoods, that the speed people travel in our neighborhoods and by our schools is an issue. I think one thing that's most important is it's time for action. We know there's a problem. Our citizens have told us that. And I think one of the important things we can do is look at the evidence that's working in other communities. Barrie is not the only city that has problems with traffic and speed in neighborhoods and around schools. For example, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan has piloted successfully speed enforcement cameras. They're very successful, they're cost effective, and they use the money gained with those cameras to put back into community safety type plans, so affording those speed bumps that might walk through your neighborhood. So it's a very intelligent way to do things. Look for best practices across Canada. I was also talking to Police Chief John Carr from London, Police Services, and he told me about Burnaby, British Columbia. And they're using painted children images on the roads. And what it does is it draws the attention of the driver to where they are, and makes them mindful to slow down. So they're very creative with using markings on the road to slow people down. I think it's time to take action. I think committees, although well-intended, and I've sat on many in my lifetime, often fail to create action. So I think for me, it's about looking for best practices across Canada and implementing those in our community. As far as community safety, evidence again suggests crime prevention the best method is to engage communities in efforts to advance community safety and well-being. So it focuses on community safety and well-being. The effort brings together stakeholders from all community partnerships, including human service providers, to collaborate efforts to address the root causes of crime and social disorder. I'd advocate that Allandale and the board take a similar approach, to have a community session to investigate the issues that are in this ward. To quote Chief Police Jennifer Evans, when we work together to prevent crime and victimization, and increase community safety and well-being, the result is a better quality for every citizen. Thank you.
Good. Well, that's the first question, and you can be thinking now about those answers as you think about who you're going to choose. The second question is also one that was posed to the candidates a week ago. Much of the older part of Allandale and of other historic areas are covered by intensification protocol imposed on Barrie by the provincial government under Places to Grow. You can't blame this on Doug Ford either. This has been around for a while. As a councillor for Ward 8, how would you ensure that the historic neighbourhoods will not be obliterated under intensification? And the first response is Shelly's.
Thank you. So the first thing I would do is really take a look at Allandale as a annex. I think I mentioned that already. It needs to be a community in itself. Today when we were at the open candidates house at the City Hall, we were able to speak with Steve, who is involved in West Barrie. We had a really great conversation about having an Allandale Business Association separate, that works separately from the Downtown Business Association, but is supported by the city. And I think that's an important thing to consider. We are in an area that is, zoned for urban planning. So we need to be really conscious that we're working with new, but still holding on to the history of our community. I find that Allandale reminds me a lot of like Streetsville or even Old Montreal, and two places that I've lived and frequented. And they have a great way of preserving that heritage and that culture, but making it so that it is, like I said, a walkable community, a livable community, and something that we can actually have a festival that gives heritage walks. We really need to invest in a planner, a heritage planner, and I'm all for that. And I hope that we can do that within the first year or so being on council. And we need to really consider intensification in our community and how we can do that so we can have certain zones that are left to be rich and full of our heritage, and other areas that are deemed areas that we can actually work and build, but be conscious of how we and responsible on how we grow that community. But I think the biggest thing is to really see Allandale as a community and an annex on its own, and to work Allandale separately from the ward itself, and to work with a plan and a planning committee to do that. And I think that really starting to invest in Allandale separately with the Allandale Business Association and try to build that, and then start working on community building and festivals and culture building in our community.
Thank you. So this issue is also a very contentious one for our community. The entire Places to Grow plan identifies Barrie as a primary settlement area, and Barrie is the only urban growth center in the South Central area. I understand the concern that Allandale residents have about the plan and how the intensification will affect this area. But I think we also, before we get into the cons, have to recognize there's opportunity in this plan. Some of the opportunities include improving housing, particularly those for seniors, improving access to transportation, also moving pedestrians, making pedestrian communities more friendly, promoting commercial growth in our neighborhood. Some of us remember when Allandale had a wonderful downtown, and the IGA was there, hotel, bank, and services, and some retail. We've lost our identity in this area. What is the identity of the downtown area here now in Allandale? This might be a way to revitalize this. Well, I really, really appreciate the concern with the loss of heritage, and I am a proponent. I think throughout my life, I regret not being more active when Don Freedom was torn down, or watching our city hall be turned into an arch. Those are sad pieces of our history that we've let those two iconic buildings go. So I think what has to happen is a good consultation. We recognize that this urban development plan is upon us, but how can we access the community and the information and abilities here to ensure that we are able to make this new vision of Allandale, respective of the old Allandale, and a new, vibrant, exciting Allandale. I think we'd like that. So, in closing, I'd also support the cultural heritage strategy that we have adopted with 4 pillars: knowing, protecting, managing, and communicating. Mayor Lane recently said he would support a heritage plan in the city next year or two. I would support this effort as well. Thank you.
I'm a firm believer that we can do nothing about the past, but we have a tremendous opportunity and responsibility to shape the future. As your councillor, I will have a seat on the city's Heritage Committee, and I'll work with you and others in Barrie to identify homes and sites and get them on the Heritage Register. I think that's important for our city to keep what we do have and identify it, and I think we can do better. I also, with regards to the intensification, I will work with you and other neighborhoods to bring any of these future intensification projects to your awareness and to your association and get your opinion on it so that we can go forth with City Council. Because City Council does have veto power. We make these decisions in Council. And one of the important things for whoever you choose to represent you is to have a good relationship with the mayor and other councillors as we work together. And I have Mike McCann here with me here tonight. He is the current councillor in Ward 10, and I have his full support in helping us preserve the heritage here in Allandale. And this is something that I think that we'll all need to work together with. And I look forward to working with you to helping to preserve your community and neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to start with intensification, the word itself. My view is bigger isn't always better. And I prefer to see quality versus quantity. For some reason, we want to keep growing and growing, and this whole word intensification, I understand as Jim mentioned, the golden horseshoe plan has said we shall do this. I first want to hear from the provincial government to say that was a different government that implemented that plan, and where does it leave us? And I truly understand that development charges help bring down our costs as well, but that's a big concern. I'm concerned about the zoning changes, and a good example are the developments that negatively affect existing neighborhoods, such as McDonald Block downtown, the 20-story building. And I know that planning is planning. I spoke to them today. Just because it comes to a public meeting doesn't mean that's what you're going to get. And I think it's important for anybody here to pass on the word. If a public meeting is posted, you have to go so council can hear what you have to say. They have to listen, and planning, they just put forward the proposal. It's up to you as the citizens to say your 2 cents worth. And if you don't do it, unfortunately, you're going to be left with whatever council has to say. I support the heritage strategy recently passed at council. I think we have to move it forward, and it's important to hire a planner for that. I support directing additional funds in that aspect. Just because a home is old doesn't necessarily deem it to be historic. I think we have to remember that there are some derelict buildings out there, and just because it's 100 years old doesn't mean it can't go down. Some promising good development goes in that blends with the architectural design of what you currently have in the neighborhood. Community improvement plans, I think, are wonderful, and I support those type of incentives to enhance our heritage homes. Support additional incentives to make it more attractive towards the restoration of historic homes, or even to convert them into professional offices, as we've already seen in some of our communities. I think it's important we do that. And just to remember, the Essex-Bradford corridor is a gateway to our waterfront downtown, and it's important for us to recognize that.
Good. Now you've heard the responses to the new questions that were posed by the Allandale Neighbourhood Association. So now it's up to you. We have questions from the floor. Who would like to start?
Yes, I'd like to direct my question to Mr. Thompson.
Yeah.
I keep on hearing Barrie. I'd like to know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I live in Springwater. The reason I chose...
Why would you run the spring water then?
I live in Springwater. I chose to run in Ward 8. This is where I had my business for 20 years. Very familiar with the ward. Happy to serve here. I have a place with my son on Drury Lane.
Other questions?
One of the concerns that I had as each year came around is the idea of regional policing. Taking the idea of South Simcoe and blending it back in, allowing the OPP to go back out because 400 isn't getting any smaller, as we all know. It's expanding in grandeur. So would it be something that any one of you would consider getting rid of Barrie's police force and creating a regional Simcoe County, combining South Simcoe with Sage Beach and everybody else? Thank you.
I'm going to ask Brian Miller first.
Maybe that was coming here.
This was not planned.
No, that's fair. You know what, back in 1997, actually it was probably about 1995, I belonged to the Municipal Police Service. We went through a tri-service amalgamation discussion with the city of Barrie and Brantford West Willamray. Unfortunately, due to, in my opinion, egos, it didn't go. It should have, in my opinion. Cost effectiveness, the larger you are, it's buying power, it's everything. I think it's still possible. The dynamics of bringing, back in the day it was the OPP, it was called the jewel of the crown. That was what Barrie was, if those that were here remember. Barrie underwent a costing, it was very nasty. Sometimes, unfortunately, the OPP, it's not always the price you get that's in the drawer. That's gone by the wayside, I think, fortunately, more so now. In regards to the dynamics, yeah, it is possible, but you got to get provincial buy-in as well. It is possible to see, I think, a tri-service amalgamation with Barrie and South Simcoe. You would see, I think, additional savings because you only need one chief, you only need, say, one deputy or two deputies, you only need so many upper command. Upper command and staff cost you money. And I think Brad may have mentioned in regards to prisoner transport, another issue. The OPP are responsible for that, even though Barrie takes care of their own down here, but I do see what he's saying as well. I do see cost savings, but it's not as easy as 1, 2, 3 was good.
Brad Thompson, I'm from. I have to say that at the beginning of this, I organized a set of random distribution of names, and so we're going to stick to the order that I choose, because my computer tells me that it's different each time. So your second one this time is Brad Thompson.
I think there's models that it has proved successful, like such as Peel and York. So there are people that have gone before us that have kind of worked out the hiccups, and I think it may be something that we look forward to in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I'd like to draw you to a research document. It's called The Blue Line or the Bottom Line, Arresting the Runaway Cost of Policing in Canada. It's about the Allandale Institute. And the point of the article is the cost of policing in Canada has gone up exponentially over GDP. So I'm a firm believer in police. I won the police chief award last year, so I hope she's listening too closely. But what we have to do is recognize there's best practice, and it's not all done in the area. And I think your point about combining services is exactly right. It will save money. It's proven. In 1995, the OPP tried to take over the Barrie Police Services, and it was voted out, it was lost by one vote. The OPP taking over communities hasn't proven to be successful, because when their contract is built, they get an automatic bump up to be a top paid force. So if they negotiate for things like better benefits and stuff, they can catch up on the salary because of the way their contract is developed. So I think combining our services with South Simcoe makes perfect sense, and I advocate for that. Thank you.
and Barrie is very, very unique to the county in general. And I'm unsure if that is necessarily the best move, especially if we're thinking about overall safety of our community. I think that at this point, it's best to keep the service the way it is, and to, we are growing, Barrie is a growing community, and it's might be something that we can consider as the rest of the county grows in the future, but I think at this point, especially for the next 5 years, I would say, or 5 to 10 years, we should really be thinking about keeping our service here and making sure it's the best service, because it does have a lot of work to do at the Barrie Police Service to make sure it's up to par to what we need for our community. And I'm concerned how we're going to do that if we change it and not leave it to a self-clinical service.
I'm just wondering, your position as a former police officer usually would be seen as an attribute, but in this day and age with so much mistrust with the police and different communities, particularly in Ward 8, the high incident rate in Allandale and the surrounding area, do you think that your position as a police officer in the past will hinder your chances of winning? Why or why not?
Sorry, I missed the first little part that you said.
With your stance as a police officer, having been a police officer, in this day and age with so much mistrust with police in different communities, do you think that will hinder your chance at winning the election, and why or why not?
Well, I hope that they take me for who I am, not say, I'm the first one to admit it. It's like any business. You have bad apples everywhere. That's the bottom line. I was a staff sergeant and I was also the association president. So I saw it from both ends, whether it be as a manager, trying to supervise, trying to discipline people, but also then representing the interests of those bad apples. Yeah, could it affect me as being a police officer and running for council? I suppose it could. I would hope it doesn't. I think a lot of in the community still respect police officers, and I think the community has to appreciate the fact that, yeah, with police oversight the way it is today, my daughter's a police officer at the OPP, so I support the OPP full-heartedly. And my other daughter, she's also a 911 operator with Sept Police, and I had no idea she'd apply, just so you know, I didn't have any influence on that. She told me afterwards, so I was very happy when she did apply down there. But in saying that, yeah, I would like to say no. I believe in integrity. I had 31 years exemplary service. And I find myself to be a very approachable individual. I know some of my friends say they never think of as a police officer because I'm too friendly. And there are people out there that I question themselves to, that are officers that have that stern look. And it's like, guys, mellow a little bit. And I appreciate you got to walk the walk to understand what goes on. And I fully support the guys. I do know that there's a council member down in Innisfil and the mayor as well, who they were subject to an integrity investigation. Personally, when we get down into their county muffins, I'm sorry, but I don't want to comment on that because I don't know and I haven't spoken to them, but I would hope that it doesn't take me for who I am. Thanks.
For everybody, are you familiar with Bill 65, the Safer Schools Act, and what are your thoughts on it? Do you support it? Do you not? How would you vote in favor of or not?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, the schools, like, I haven't studied Bill 65. Can you tell me what that bill is?
It's giving the community, like the city, taking away from the province the ability to change the speed limit in school zones, as well as implement traffic lights and red lights, cameras and stuff like that. But if tickets are given, 60% goes back to the province, only 40 is kept in the community, and it's 600,000, I believe, to go forward.
Thank you very much. I hope everyone else did their homework on that line. So maybe it's a page that I'll do myself. But again, I will tell you that it's important to be honest and transparent. If I don't know something, I'm going to ask. I won't make it up. I won't think you deserve that from me. I would say that as my position on speeding, the best outcome isn't tickets in zones. It's people driving the speed limit. So ultimately, over time, it won't be about the money we gain, it's about the safety that we gain. So I don't know if I would quibble about how much money we get from speeding in zones around schools. What I really care about is that if we had no speeding around schools and we made no money, and our percentage was 0 from 0, that would be wonderful. No accidents, no injuries, would be the best outcome. So what I would focus on, what we really want, not the money, we want the safe community for our children.
Thanks. I'm not 100% familiar yet. I'd be the first one to admit that as well. Yeah, no problem. I knew a little bit about it because I know what that has to do, as far as I know, about basically photo radar, if you want to call it that. I know there are some people that are proponents of photo radar. My biggest concern is from a policing aspect, from an insurance aspect. Demerit points aren't there. Yeah, you know, we went through this way back in the NDP government. The Liberals thought about it. It didn't happen. I had residents tell me they aren't in support of photo radar. My concern about photo radar is the ticket doesn't come to an individual. It comes to the vehicle owner. And it's a fine, which is great. We can put that back into the community and to other traffic enforcement measures. And if that's what the community wants, I'd support it, because basically you are the people that are telling us what you want in your community. In regards to speed enforcement, when a fine comes 2 weeks later in the mail, well, the Tesla driver, he doesn't care. He's going to pay it, and he goes on with his life. It will send a bit of a message, because fines are important, but I think the merit points, proactive enforcement is as important. And, you know, the safety of our kids is of ultimate importance. Doesn't matter how we look at it, whether it's the design of our streets, the traffic calming devices. You know, I know Jim mentioned out west or in Saskatchewan. My understanding is the provincial government's trying to get their hands on that money. I think you indicated 60%, 40%. The government out there is now trying to get all the money from the municipalities. They're trying to get 90% of it. So the local government is going to have their hands full on that. But whatever we can do to keep our kids safe near our school zones, it's important. And I think Jim mentioned it too, lowering speed limits is an option. But we need enforcement. We need police presence there. And whether it be lighting, whatever, three-way stops. But people go through stop signs, but we need enforcement. Thanks.
I'm going to get you to clarify, if you don't mind, I missed that a little bit. So are you saying that they're taking, the province is taking it out of the municipal hands and they're going to be making the decisions?
Yeah, the province is giving the power to the to the community. So it's individual communities to reduce the speed, like the council will be able to reduce speed limits.
Absolutely.
Not in the traffic act.
Okay. Yeah, I'm absolutely in favor of us, our community being able to make our own decisions in terms of what's appropriate for our community, what's safe for our community. Every community is different, so anything that gives us a little bit more power to make those decisions, I'm in favor for. And I mean, I think that, I don't know about all of you, I'm younger than some of you here, but even I lived in a time where I couldn't cross the street or do something that my neighbor didn't know me or my mom, and didn't want to. I was afraid. I was afraid that I was going to be caught, and I think that that's kind of what I love about this association and being able to get to know all of you, but also what my platform is that community togetherness. Is we really need to start knowing our neighbors again, and I think that can make a big difference in terms of what safety looks like in our community.
I'm not in. I didn't know about this bill, but as you've shared and educated with us, it's a common sense thing. I'd be in favor of it.
Okay, who's next? There, yes.
A little Robert, the other day, my neighbor removed a homeless person from my front yard. I got 4 small kids. We see that sort of thing going on all the time. I met with the people at the Busby Center, and they're saying these are average men around 25 to 55 years old. The whole prison bus thing is a major issue. We have a homeless problem, and it's coming from the city of Toronto. We're getting flooded. It's going to happen here. Some of the violence that we're seeing in Toronto is going to happen here. What are you guys going to do about it? Because this is not okay. I'm not the only neighbor. I got another neighbor on Hill Street. A bunch of vagrants are having a party on his back deck while he was at work. Like, he's sitting out on his deck. Like, there's just no respect. What are you guys going to do about this?
Gathering place for vagrancy and for drug use, and I don't know, it doesn't seem to be talked about. I mean, we're all feeling, we're feeling the effects of what's going on downtown spilling over into here. It's kind of like downtown is becoming no vacancy, and so it's coming your way, and I think we really have to do some things. Studies have shown that providing housing for those that want the help can actually solve part of the problem. Certainly, we have to do something about the bus from the super jail coming in. I'm shocked that when I first started running, I was told it wasn't happening. But as I began talking in the community, I found that it still was. So I think that's one thing, one solution that we can do right away. Also, I don't believe in safe injection sites. I think that if we build these things, there's a philosophy that they will come. Any investment we make should be, to me, for prevention and for addiction recovery. So those are my, and enforcement, like we have bylaws on the books with regards to vagrancy. I play tennis at Queen's Park on a regular basis. I've yet to see one bylaw officer come in, and I see drug deals going on right out in the open. I get to see any law enforcement now as well. We need to do better.
Would you advocate for pardon?
Yes, yeah,
Stop. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah,
whether you like it or not.
Yeah, it's proven in the past, and I think stopping the pardon is not a mistake.
The group, these aren't marginalized groups. These are grown men
Yeah.
who are white, who are ages 25 and 55. I'm not saying anything nasty here.
Yeah,
those are the stats.
Yeah.
Card them. This is not good. What's happening in Toronto is
It's
not
far
good.
too
It's
easy to
coming
manhandle your
here.
area as well. We've kind of made these strips on our roads where people can stand, and I mean, it's a big business now, I think. I mean, this is tax-free money. This is cash.
You don't have to, you don't expect everybody to answer every question. If not, right?
Why won't you answer the question?
Oh, I'm gonna answer.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. I saw you shaking your head.
No, it's a sensitive topic and it's a big deal, that's all. Okay, so for those who don't know and haven't read my platform, I understand what you're saying. These are people 22 years old to 55 years old, white men, and I understand what you're saying there, but at the end of the day, we do have a bigger issue, and I'm sure Jim will be able to attest to the mental health issues that we have in our community and all across Canada, addiction issues, and I think that it's about social services, and it's about support from the community. And it's about not an us versus them, but what can we do to support all of us and to make our community safer for everyone. I was homeless 3 years ago, and if it wasn't for the services in our community, me and my children wouldn't have anywhere to live. And I advocate every day for those people. And I'm very much in support of Redwood Park communities because they are the ones who took me and my children in. And I am a huge support of Sept Suites and affordable housing and the Barrie Hotel project, and I continue to support projects like that to get people off the streets and help give them an opportunity to sit up here with these incredible gentlemen today and run for your city council and support the community and give back in every which way. It's not about money, it's about what you can do, and it's about somebody else letting you know that you're worthy enough to do it.
I made some notes here. I'll touch upon carding to begin with. From a policing standpoint, I agree with you. Toronto took away carding, and I don't think it's, it gets a bad rap because, with all due respect, is it a racist thing or is it criminals or criminal activity? When I worked in Toronto, it was called 172. You'd submit, you'd touch base with somebody at 3 in the morning, you'd put it in, and they'd keep track of it. And if somebody else, checked records at 3 in the morning another day, they'd start saying, why are you out at 3 o'clock in the morning in a drug-known area? Or where there's criminal activity. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. It has to do with you're in a criminal neighborhood, and that's what carding is good for. Unfortunately, whether it be abusive behavior by the police, that did, I think, negatively affect it. But I do support carding in that aspect for that very reason. I think it does prevent people from loitering in areas they shouldn't be, i.e. criminal areas, drug areas, where there's a high crime rate. In regards to the homeless issue, I'm going to be going to Redwood Park. They have a couple, I think it is, seminars in the next couple of weeks. And I'm going just to learn a little bit more. They've done, as Shelly mentioned, the bar motel down the street. I think it's important that we put a roof over people's head first. It's all well and good to say, it's all well and good to say we're going to have aggressive enforcement. But, people have mental health issues, they've got drug issues. Just because you're homeless doesn't mean you're a terrible person. Just saying. Safe injection sites, overdose prevention. If it saves a life, I think they're important. I'll be the first one. We lobbied against it in BC because BC still has issues. I don't think you can tolerate drug use outside of them, but it does make the community safer. Hopefully also, on a side note, cannabis may assist in the opioid crisis that's going on. It's what it is, it's legal, it's coming, it's going to be legal. And hopefully it'll minimize the opioid crisis in the community too.
You're dreaming.
So this is a topic that requires a lot more than 2 minutes, I can tell you that. Homelessness itself is called a wicked issue in the administrative terminology because it is so complex. One of the best ways to approach this issue, to think about it before we get emotional, is to start using facts and best evidence. The Insight overdose prevention sites in Vancouver, since its inception, has saved over $264 million in services. Because when people don't have the insight, they use police services, emergency services, other health services, and ER professionals, and it costs a lot more money for our society. So if you're concerned with the bottom line, these save money. Evidence also suggests community safety and well-being in Ontario. This is a document from Ontario's Chiefs of Police. So the Chiefs of Police support community efforts to concern themselves with well-being of their citizens and to address the root causes of crime and social disorder. Because if you think, go back to your grade 3 classroom with all your friends, some of those kids may have ended up homeless, addicted to opioids, or worse. That wasn't what they aspired for themselves when they were a young person. None of the kids in our schools aspire to that either, but some will end up there. As far as police custody, the provincial government has invested a lot of money in police custody services. So our local services have support that go into the jail prior to discharge to help launch people to the community. The concern with the bus station here, I get it completely. And what I never argue with it because that's how they feel. But what I would say, if it comes here, the reality is the vote right now, Mr. McCann, he's going to vote for the bus terminal, be in Allandale, Mr. Thompson's friend. So the challenge isn't, what will I do? How do I get 5 other councils to vote against it? But what I say to people is, if it comes, the reality is, Love Street Center's downtown, Out of the Coal's downtown, Youth Haven's downtown, Red Park Homes is downtown, the new place over here I'm prepping soon, Eat Fry's downtown, Youth Haven, Transport Support Programs downtown, Ontario Works, all the services that those people will need are downtown, so oriented downtown. But again, we have to use evidence to make our decisions, not emotion. Thank you very much.
Most of you talked quite passionately just now about social solutions that are very long-term solutions to problems, and those things require funding. There are obviously infrastructure issues in Barrie that require funding, and there are projects in the city that the city would like to do that also require funding that should have a positive impact on the city as a whole, create a city where people want to live. my question to you is, it's very easy in the moment to talk passionately about infrastructure and social programs and great community building, but when it comes down to it, there's a pot of money to be allocated, so where do you put it?
You're correct, there is a pot of money. And, you know, our job on council is to decide where that pot of money goes and what's more important and what things can be pushed aside for a later date. And I think that right now, things that are important are investing in our community, because our community is an investment, and we have to see it as that. And that includes investing in diversity, inclusion, arts and culture, and things that make the city a city that people want to move to, want to invest in, want to build their businesses and their homes here. Which will give us more pots of money to work with. But we also have to really think about where this money is going and how we're going to deal with some of the socioeconomic issues that we have in our community. We have an affordable housing issue right now, and that needs to be top concern. And I want everybody to be very careful when they hear the word about affordable housing. Affordable housing is not always lower income housing. Okay, so we have to understand that affordable housing means also middle income first-time home buyers, opportunities for them. So when we are hearing that we had all these affordable housing units, implemented into our community, you have to be asking those questions. How many of those are accessible units for our aging population, those with disabilities, and how many of those were lower income housing? So that's an extremely important question, and I think that's something that we've been really excited. We've been seeing this chart grow and grow and grow, but we have to really understand exactly what's being allocated and where, and that's something that I want to make sure make clear when I'm on council.
Well, important to note that the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, their number one priority right now for mental health and addiction services is affordable housing with supports. And one of the keys to affordable housing and being successful is supports. There's also efforts right now in the city of Toronto. I can't remember the numbers, but I was at a meeting there last week, and a large percentage of their about 40 people, if they had services, would likely save their housing. So what we have to do, and what will likely be happening, is we'll be putting services in affordable housing buildings so people can stay housed. I was involved in an affordable housing bill, has to be over a decade ago. You'll remember Hyde Park Manor used to be a retirement home. It was a failing business and didn't run. We approached a developer, Mahogany Manager from Mississauga, and they turned that building into 21 affordable housing units with supports. So people in the building have supports to help them stay housed. That's often the difference between staying housed and not being housed. Also, all the city of Barrie had to do for us at that time was there was a 1.5 parking spaces per unit bylaw. All they had to do was waive the bylaw. The folks in that building didn't have licenses, let alone cars. It's a very easy accommodation for the city. It's also involved in Penetang Place, out on Penetang Blake Street. It's a seniors-focused sort of housing program, again, with supports in the building as well. So there's money. There's always money. There's one taxpayer, I get it. But if the Conservative government, provincially, is investing $1.9 billion for 10 years in mental health and addiction services, what I would go is we're going to get our share in Barrie. So we can invest it back into our community. Same thing federally, $1.9 billion in mental health being invested for 10 years. We can get our share. The reality is money comes from the county Simcoe for affordable housing and services. We can get our share of that as well. So I've worked in that business for a long time. And I've successfully got a lot of money out of our provincial and federal governments for programs. So it won't be Barrie's cost. We have to do is be smart and use our bylaws and be creative. It won't cost Barrie a lot of money. It's going to come from the province and the feds. Thank you.
Politicians seem to talk sometimes as if there's an endless supply of money. And obviously there's some hard decisions that have to be made. And, one of the things I'll be able to do, or I think anyways, that I'll be a benefit to you and to the city of Barrie is bringing a freshness of eyes on our city budget and our property taxes. For me, overwhelmingly, as I've been on canvassing, that's the number one concern. There's lots of concerns, but that's the number one concern for the residents of the city of Barrie, their property taxes and how they're spent. There is a limited amount to what we can pay. I talked to someone today that they're saying they're being forced out of their home because of their high property taxes. That shouldn't happen. Yeah, what I will do for the city and for taxation and for these expenses, I know the difference between needs and wants. And again, there's some hard decisions to make. And that business look and that fresh set of eyes in our budget, I think, will be helpful.
Yeah, in regards to this, I think you're talking mainly about the money issue. What are we going to do? Where are we going to get it?
Of everything the city wants to do, what do you prioritize and where does it go? Because you can talk about everything needing support, but you have to divvy up the money somehow.
Yeah, exactly. I think what has to happen is wasteful spending to begin with has to be identified. I think we have to. I've had an individual resident mention to me saying we should have an independent person review the city departments. There are departments in the city that probably could use an overhaul, with all due respect to the people working there. And I'm not saying layoffs, I'm saying maybe through attrition we can identify jobs that may be redundant. When's the last time we had an outside person come in and actually do a true review? We leave it up to the senior managers, and with all due respect to them, they get friendly with others, and I've seen it in the public sector where I've seen upper command positions that are redundant, yet we keep them on, and at some point through attrition, we should not be replacing those positions. In identifying where do you put it, it's a difficult decision. My concern is with the provincial government right now. We're going to see a lot of cuts, and it's going to have a domino effect on us. And there is money there. Where do we find it? Where do we put it? Yeah, it's a tough decision. I think it's important. We heard affordable housing. A lot of it's provincial that we've talked about. Policing. All the different departments. Service Barrie, they've done a great job, for example. I understand they have 12, 13 people. But Service Barrie's taken all those calls. I suppose it freed up some space for other departments. Maybe not. So it's a difficult decision. I don't think we all have the answer up here, but I think during budget time, we have to seriously look at what is presented and take every department. I don't like what's presented in those budgets. I think they're too brief. They're very rounded up figures. I remember when I did the IDEM budget, my chief of police said, sorry, be more specific. And I think we have to be more specific with the departments. We're talking $330 million of a budget. So there's lots of money there to deal with.
Well, in view of our usual target of closing shortly after 8:30, we're going to move to the closing statements. And first lucky speaker is Brian Miller.
Okay, to go first, Dan. In closing, I think Jim touched on this at the beginning. I'm going to start with it's important for the residents of Ward 8 to consider the candidate who actually resides in Ward 8. I think it's very important, with all due respect to Brad, he's a nice guy. I think we need somebody who actually, whether it be the three on each side of me, live in the ward. Brad's a great guy, but we need somebody to represent our interests in the ward, because we're living it, we're seeing it, we're feeling it, and we're more in touch with what's going on. I'm going to listen to your concerns. I believe in two-way communication. I understand the importance of responding to all your correspondence. I understand some people didn't get the responses they wanted. I may not have the answer, but at least I'm going to acknowledge that and say, I'll let me do it and get back to you. I think that's very important. If elected as Ward 8 councillor, I will treat it as a full-time job, and I have the time to be able to do that, being retired. I'm no longer going to Florida. We have a board down there, believe it or not. I won't be going. I feel this is a full-time job, whether it's going to the senior residents, coming here for the ANA, Allandale meetings, the pain. So we got to remember, we're here talking about Allandale, but you know what, Ward 8's a big ward. It goes all the way down to McKay, 400 area. It goes over to Tomadale, the Gables, goes over to Painesburg. We have a big ward. We have the second largest ward in the city. And we have to recognize that. And for me, I had no problem committing and being at those. I've gone to the Mill Street long-term care. I haven't handed out flyers. I don't think it's appropriate. But I've gone for a couple of events. I think it's important. And I've been to Tomadale Village and going to Iowa, Serenity Place, all the different events down at the community center. I think it's important whoever gets on attends these meetings, because that's where you guys are. We have to hear your concerns at the meetings and take them to council. To finish with, I just want to thank the Allandale Neighbourhood Association for hosting it tonight, Unity Christian School as well for allowing us to be here. And I'd like to wish good luck to all the candidates in the upcoming election, and congratulations for being up here. And just finish with thank you to everybody that's actually here. It's been a great turnout, and it's been amazing. And I'm sorry if we didn't have all the answers, but I know you've raised our education a lot more, and that's what this is all about, is raising our education. Every day is a new day for me, and it's education every time I knock on a door. And I totally appreciate both sides. I know I didn't touch on this. My time or anything? Okay. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
150 years ago, in 1868, my great-grandfather, John Thompson, loaded his family in a covered wagon and a team of oxen in Toronto, and they traveled north. They came right by here on their way to Muskoka, where he homesteaded. The covered wagon and the oxen stopped in Gravenhurst because that was the end of the road. And our family history tells us that he carried his provisions, as well as his son Henry, on his shoulders the rest of the way, where they homesteaded on 100 acres just north of Bracebridge. Henry, his son, went on to be the reeve and served on the township council for 20 years. Our family and that community, even today, is better for their service. And I hope they've made a real difference in their community and our family, and I hope that in my opportunity to serve you and the residents of Barrie, I hope to make a difference. I hope to make a difference in the property tax. I hope to make a difference in improving the infrastructure and the lifestyle that we all enjoy in this great city. I hope to make a difference in community safety. I think it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm a common sense person. It doesn't make sense to me that we've allowed all these years for the bus and the super jails to come and to drop off the inmates down at the bus station. I don't think it's good for them. I don't think it's good for the community. We don't have the resources here to assist them in the way that they should. We share a great history in this beautiful city. I think I can make a difference for preserving our heritage and preserving our green spaces. I'm presenting myself here tonight as someone that has the experience, the time, the energy, the integrity, and the enthusiasm working with you to make a difference. One of my strengths when I started my business is I surrounded myself with good people, and some of them are here tonight supporting me. I thank you for that. And I've kind of looked at tonight as a job interview. And if you like what I stand for, and if you like what I see, let's work together. And I hope to have your support on October 22nd. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I told my friends to stay home. They wanted all the undecided voters to come, not the decided voters to come. I really wondered what I would say to conclude my comments. I'm just getting comfortable, as you can probably tell. But, you know, I hear some things tonight that worry me. 1995 was the Common Sense Revolution. And in that Common Sense Revolution, a lot of vulnerable people were taken advantage of. Social services were cut, slashed dramatically, at a level that if we had cut our own salaries that much, we wouldn't pay our mortgages either. I hear a little bit of that blaming of our underprivileged, and that worries me. In fact, I think it's how we treat our most vulnerable that defines our society. So having said that, what's important? What's important to you? That's the most important thing to us as councillors. We represent you. It's one vote for Ward 8, and it's your vote. So I'll finish with this. As your voice on council, I will commit to you. I will focus on issues that are important to the ward. I will listen to you. I will work hard to prepare for all meetings. I will ask the questions that are important for Ward 8. I'll respond promptly to all calls and contacts. That is just common courtesy. I'll make informed decisions by reviewing all available information. As I said here tonight, it's important to look at evidence, look at research. Emotion is wonderful, and it fuels us, and it fuels me. But we need to be critical with evidence and look at that to make our decisions. I will cooperate and collaborate with other councillors and residents, city staff, and stakeholders. Developing partnerships and making collaborations are among my strengths. I will provide quarterly town halls and use technology to allow constant communication with constituents. And above all, I will be honest and transparent. I understand that whether I'm your friend, your neighbor, or your fellow Warning resident, as your councillor, I'm accountable to you. October 22nd, I hope you'll cast your vote for me. Thank you very much.
I should have wrote something in my closing, I didn't. Okay, I just want to thank you, everybody, for your questions, and everybody who's been sending emails and messages in regards to your concerns for the community. I appreciate each and every one of them. And this process, this entire time that I've been on the road, I've learned and I've grown, and each experience is unique. And I'm a passionate person. And when you vote for me, you'll know that I'm going to be passionate for this community and for each and every single one of you. I know a lot of these faces in here, I'm really inspired by everybody that's in this room who really are dedicated to the community as a whole. And a lot of you in this room have inspired me. I am somebody who doesn't sit down and allow things to happen. I'm a change maker and I'm a fighter. And that's what you're going to get when you have me on council. I'm going to represent this community in a way that has never been represented before. And I'm going to fight for a community that we can all be so proud of, each and every single one of us, regardless of where we come from, and regardless of our means or our abilities. I'm going to fight for you. And I mean, that's just my track record, that's just who I am, and I don't really know any other way to be. And I'm proud of Barrie, and regardless of how many times I've been told over and over again why Barrie, it's because of every one of you. It's because of people who are passionate about the city, who care. You make me want to continue living here. You make me want to have my children have their families in this community. I'm here to stay, and I want to represent your city, and I hope that you'll allow me to do that on October 22nd.
Well, on behalf of the Allandale Neighbourhood Association, I'd like to thank all four of the candidates for putting their necks in the noose for us tonight. I hope we learned something, and I'm very grateful to all four of you. Thank you very, very much. One minor procedural thing, if you would help by stacking chairs at the back, that would be lovely. And if you want to be on our email list, remember to sign up on the way out. Thank you.